princess loved by the world, an unexpected tragedy, and a succession of events that never made sense. That night of August 31st, 1997, Lady Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed left the Ritz Hotel in Paris and got into the car that would take them to a destination they would never reach. Minutes later, the vehicle collided violently against a pillar in the Alma Tunnel. The official version? An accident caused by high speed and the driver's drunken state. But the facts say otherwise. Witnesses reported a flash through intense moments before impact. A flash that would have disoriented the driver. Others claim to have seen a white Fiat Uno fleeing the scene, never identified. The tunnel's security cameras, which should have captured everything, were curiously not working that night. And then there's the most unsettling factor. Diana survived the impact, was conscious and talking to rescuers. Why then did it take almost 2 hours to be taken to the hospital? If you believe that the truth needs to be revealed, leave your like now. Diana already knew she was in danger. 2 years before his death, he wrote an alarming letter to his trusted butler, Paul Burrell. In the message, she described her fear that a car accident would be orchestrated to take her out of the scene. "They are planning an accident in my car, a brake problem," he wrote. A macabre prophecy or an ignored warning, she challenged the system, spoke openly about her suffering within the monarchy, and became an icon of freedom that escaped the control of the British royal family. His romance with Dodi Al-Fayed bothered the British elite, and the press speculated about a possible pregnancy. Would an heir with Arab blood be acceptable to the monarchy? Diana's death left gaps that were never filled. Details were covered up, investigations silenced, witnesses ignored. Why so many contradictions? Who really benefited from his death? If this was not an accident, but rather a planned execution, then who had the power to erase Diana from history? Get ready. This is just the beginning of a journey full of revelations that will change everything you think about the British royal family. The clock struck just after midnight as Lady Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed left the Ritz Hotel in Paris. The couple, pursued by a crowd of paparazzi, hurriedly got into a black Mercedes-Benz, accompanied by driver Henri Paul and security guard Trevor Rees-Jones. The vehicle took off at high speed, deviating from the planned route, cutting through narrow streets in an attempt to lose the photographers. But the fate was already sealed. Minutes later, in the Alma Tunnel, the car collided violently against a concrete pillar. The impact was devastating. Diana, the most photographed woman in the world, was about to become the center of one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. What happened inside that tunnel cannot be explained just as an accident. There are many unanswered questions, many details that defy logic. The first and most intriguing, the security cameras, which were supposed to record every second of that journey, simply weren't working. No official images of the moment of the accident were captured. An unlikely technical failure, coincidence or sabotage. But that was just the beginning. Witnesses reported an intense flash moment before the impact, a flash that would have disoriented the driver. And then, an even more disturbing detail. A white Fiat Uno was seen crossing the path of the Mercedes seconds before the collision. This vehicle was never identified, no clue, no owner, no trace. How does something so crucial to the investigation just disappear? And then there is time. Diana survived the impact. I was conscious, could have been saved. But something happened inside that ambulance. It took medical staff nearly 2 hours to get her to the hospital. Long enough to turn a treatable wound into a death sentence. But why? The vehicle was stopped for precious minutes, while Diana was losing blood every second. Medical experts say an efficient rescue could have kept her alive. So, why did this ambulance remain motionless while the princess lay in agony? Was it a mistake or a calculated decision? The Alma Tunnel, normally a busy thoroughfare, was cordoned off surprisingly quickly. No civilians were allowed to approach, while the first news of the accident began to spread around the world. But what exactly happened in there? A tragic accident, the result of the desperate escape of a woman hunted by ruthless photographers, or something much more planned, carefully engineered to seem like an inevitable disaster? If it was an execution, as some believe, who was behind it? And more importantly, what did Diana know that could justify her elimination? The what comes next will leave you speechless. Diana already knew she was in danger. 2 years before her death in 1995, she wrote a letter to her trusted butler, Paul Burrell. The tone of the note was somber, almost prophetic. She said she felt her life was at risk, that powerful forces within the system wanted to get rid of her. But what really shocked the world was one specific sentence, handwritten in his unmistakable handwriting. "They are planning a car accident to eliminate me." How did she know? The princess lived surrounded by distrust. Her divorce from Prince Charles had been a public humiliation, and she was no longer a controllable player within the monarchy. He began to follow his own path, free from the influence of Buckingham Palace, becoming an independent voice. His popularity grew even more, surpassing that of the royal family itself. And this bothered those who had always governed in the shadows. But what exactly did she know that could justify such an extreme plan? Diana became involved in humanitarian causes that directly affected the interests of the British elite. His campaign against landmines was a blow to the arms industry and ran counter to powerful governments. Photos of him walking through minefields caught the world's attention, and his call for an international ban on such weapons began to gain momentum. She wasn't just a former princess, she was a political figure, a global activist, someone impossible to silence. And there was something even more delicate, his relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed. The idea of Diana, mother of the future King of England, marrying a Muslim and possibly producing an heir with Arab blood could be an unprecedented scandal for the British monarchy. Rumors indicated that she was pregnant, and if that were true, her child would pose a direct threat to the royal family's legacy. Could it be that the monarchy, the British government, and even the Secret Service had reasons to prevent this future from happening? Diana's note, ignored for years, now seemed like a fundamental piece in this puzzle. If she knew an accident was being planned, did she try to warn anyone? Or worse, did she try to escape and was stopped? Well, if this revelation shocked you, subscribe now for more secret investigations. But if his death was a murder disguised as a tragedy, who was really behind it? And how was the accident engineered so perfectly? What happened inside that tunnel the night Diana lost her life may hold answers that remain hidden to this day. Hold your breath, because you haven't seen anything yet. The official version maintains that Henri Paul, the driver of the Mercedes-Benz that transported Lady Diana that night, was drunk and drove at high speed to escape the paparazzi. But this simplistic explanation collapses in the face of facts. Toxicological tests were questioned by experts, and images from the hotel before departure show Henri Paul walking normally, without any sign of drunkenness. How would an allegedly drunk man have managed to drive at more than 100 kilometers per hour through narrow streets without losing control first? Something about this narrative doesn't make sense. And then an even more disturbing detail emerges. Witnesses present in the Alma Tunnel reported an intense flash seconds before the impact. a flash of light so strong that it could have blinded the driver for fractions of a second, long enough to cause the accident. This method is nothing new. In covert operations, intelligence agents use flashes to disorient targets and simulate accidental collisions. Using this technique raises a dark question. Did anyone want that car to lose control? But there is something even more inexplicable. Xavier Gourmelin, the firefighter who treated Diana at the scene, revealed years later that the princess was conscious and talking. According to her report, she asked, "What happened?" Her condition was stable. She did not appear to have visible critical injuries. But then, inside the ambulance, everything changed. Diana suffered a sudden cardiac arrest, and upon arriving at the hospital, doctors announced that her heart had been ruptured by the impact. How does something like this happen so suddenly? Why did the ambulance take so long to exit the tunnel, remaining there for an unusual length of time before heading to the hospital? Was this a controversial medical decision or purposefully controlled time to ensure Diana didn't get out of that vehicle alive? What if this wasn't just an accident? If the princess's death was a meticulously planned murder, who was behind it? Who would benefit from Diana's end? The answers may lie in something she was about to reveal, and in the fear it caused in very powerful people. Brace yourself. What comes next could be even more disturbing than anything revealed so far. Diana was not just a former member of the royal family, nor just the people's princess. She was a force that escaped the control of the monarchy, a name that mobilized crowds and challenged untouchable institutions. Her influence was growing overwhelmingly, and she knew it. But what you might not have known was how dangerous it could be. His relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed was not just a tabloid romance, but a blow to the traditional image of the British monarchy. A marriage to a Muslim billionaire, a man completely outside the aristocratic circle, was unthinkable. Rumors that Diana was pregnant made everything even more explosive. If true, this would mean that the future half-brother of Princes William and Harry would have an Arab lineage, something that, for the conservative structure of British royalty, could be considered an unprecedented scandal. Would the possibility of an heir with his blood circulating in the veins of the royal family have been enough to trigger an internal crisis? What would they do to stop this? But the threat Diana posed went beyond her personal life. She wasn't just a former princess looking for a fresh start. She was willing to use her voice to challenge entire systems. Her campaign against landmines has made her an outspoken enemy of the arms industry. His images walking through minefields, holding mutilated children, and denouncing governments that profited from these weapons caused discomfort in spheres of power much higher than the monarchy. She was becoming a problem not just for royalty, but for those who built fortunes on the destruction of innocent lives. She knew too much, he talked too much, and he was not afraid to expose truths that could bring down those at the top. If Diana had lived, what else would she have revealed? Would it have exposed secrets of the royal family? Would he have exposed the behind the scenes of his own destruction inside Buckingham Palace? Or worse, would it have become a global voice that was impossible to silence? Her last steps indicate that she was about to make a final move, an interview, a statement, something that could shake the power structures that feared her so much. But there was no time. The accident happened before she could speak. Hold your breath, because what comes next could be the key missing piece to unraveling this mystery. Years have passed since that night in Alma's tunnel, but the silence surrounding Lady Diana's death was never absolute. Witnesses who had previously been ignored, discredited, or threatened began to speak out. Each new statement adds a piece to the puzzle. and what seemed like just a succession of tragedies begins to turn into a meticulously planned plot. A former MI6 agent, speaking anonymously, revealed a shocking detail. Assassinations simulating car accidents are a common technique in secret operations. Precise methods, calculated to appear as inevitable fatalities, runaway cars, induced mechanical failures, the use of intense lights to disorient drivers. Everything fits perfectly into what happened that night. What if Diana really was on the hit list? Another report draws even more attention. James Ananson, a French photographer, owned a white Fiat Uno, a vehicle seen, according to witness, in the tunnel. For years, investigations were unable to link him to the case, but some say that his car showed collision marks that were never explained. Years later, Andanson's body was found charred inside a car. The official cause of death? Suicide. But who kills themselves like that? Could this be another disturbing coincidence, or a pattern that repeats itself whenever someone gets too close to the truth? The evidence continues to emerge. Henri Paul, the driver of the Mercedes, had links to intelligence agencies. Records show he received unusual payments from unknown sources. What does this mean? Was he just a driver or an undercover agent? The questions keep echoing. The official versions contradict each other, and with each new revelation, the feeling that this story is far from being a simple accident grows stronger. What else is being hidden? Who else knows the truth and is still afraid to speak out? Belle, do you think Diana was the victim of a conspiracy? Leave your comment below. If all these pieces really are part of an orchestrated plan, then we come to the most dangerous question of all. Who gave the final order? The evidence points to a well-planned cover-up, a network of powerful people who were interested in silencing Diana before she could expose something that should not be revealed. But who was at the top of this chain? Would the British monarchy have dared to go so far? Or was there something even bigger behind the scenes, involving the Secret Service and hidden forces operating above governments? The evidence we've reviewed so far suggests that Diana wasn't just a nuisance target. She was a direct threat to the system. Her influence, her freedom, and her boldness to denounce uncomfortable truths made her a problem impossible to ignore. But if his death was not an accident, who was behind this decision? Who profited from the end of the People's Princess? And most importantly, who was willing to do anything to ensure that the truth never came out? In the next episode, we go beyond speculation and follow the most dangerous clues. The name of the biggest suspect may be hiding in plain sight, and the connection between Diana, Buckingham Palace, and intelligence agencies may be even scarier than we imagine. The answer everyone fears may be about to be revealed. Watch out for what comes next. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. This video is a dramatization based on alternative theories, speculative hypotheses, and publicly available information. Our goal is solely to encourage critical thinking